Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Big Blue Drew 97 here, coming at you with another manga review for this chapter of Dr. Stone, manga chapter Z equals 161, titled Craft Wars. And in this chapter, the war begins, or should I say, the crafting war begins. So overall, when it comes to this chapter of Dr. Stone, it is the beginning of the craft war. Each side, the American side and the Kingdom of Science, is having their best leading scientist at the moment, or mechanic, or whatever field that they specialize in, crafting something that is for the benefits of their side to take out their enemy. And with that, this is what the chapter is mainly focusing on. We get a general idea of what each side is doing in preparation, and what they're possibly going to do to help win the war that they are fighting right now, where you have Chrome on the Kingdom of Science side, and we actually get the name of another doctor on the Kingdom of America, the American side, who is coming up with this cool idea to help take down the Kingdom of Science. Now, will they succeed? I don't know. Well, let's get right into the actual chapter and let's talk about it. But before we actually get to that, I'd like to ask y'all to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that we can start growing a little bit more. Leave a like and leave a comment on this video if this is a video that you liked. And with that, let's get right into this chapter review. So to start off the chapter review, I'll get right into the chapter immediately, because when it comes to the actual cover of this chapter, it's very plain. You just have Chrome, who's smiling because he realizes that he's gonna be doing something bad, and then you just have Kohaku there as well, just holding a little Senku doll. You know what? That should be an actual doll. I'm fairly certain that it is, but that should be an actual doll. So yeah, nothing really special about this cover for this chapter. So let's get right into the chapter, where we get a summation of what happened the last chapter, which can be summed up as Senku got shot, and they have to build a tunnel to infiltrate the enemy base. So yeah, that's basically what they are. They have these cool little images of Chrome and the gang going underground. You have Suika with her little pig that got distracted. So yeah, it's just a cute little scene that basically explains that Senku was shot and they're planning on building a tunnel with the power of science. And with that, we actually get more on how they're going to build this tunnel, or more specifically, that Chrome is coming to the realization that he is the science user, and that he has to make a roadmap. And this is really cool because throughout this entire story, we have only seen Senku come up with these elaborate roadmaps that are very detailed and explain pretty much thoroughly how they're going to get from point A to point B. So Chrome is preparing to create this roadmap on his own, and this would be his first roadmap that he has ever created. And don't worry, most likely than not, it won't be his last. But there's a weird moment right after Chrome declares that he's going to create a roadmap, where you have Tsukasa, who declares that it will take them around 2 weeks for all of this to go down. And I'm just thinking, how do you know that, Tsukasa? Like, how do you know this? Are you reading the manga with us? Because, spoiler, the Americans come to a conclusion that it's going to take them 2 weeks to do their thing, to come up with their craft. I'm like, Tsukasa, how could 2 weeks is like very specific. It's not like as vague as like a month or 2 months. No, it's specifically, in 2 weeks. The only way this could be more specific if Tsukasa says, oh yeah, it'll take us 2 weeks, 3 days, 12 hours, and 36 minutes. Yeah, but you know what's also funny about the fact that it's about 2 weeks is, for us, if you didn't know, this chapter is on break again. So it's going to be 2 weeks until we see the next chapter. So I think that's kind of what that may be the reason why Tsukasa says 2 weeks, because at this moment, a lot of manga are on 2 week cycles, so that's probably why that is brought up. But that's besides the point. After we get that weird thing with Tsukasa, we actually go back to the Kingdom of Science on the ship, where you have pretty much everyone there panicking. But luckily enough, we have Ryusui, who I'm beginning to love with each chapter, mainly due to the fact that you have all these people in the Kingdom of Science that are panicking. They're afraid that the Americans will come and invade them. I just realized America invading them. They're Japanese. Symbolism! But yeah, they're afraid that the American scientists will invade them and take them over. And then you have people worrying about, like, oh no, they're never going to do that. You have Magma saying that. You have Genryo who's being scared. Is like, yeah, but they might be able to. And then you have best girl Nikki who's like, yeah, they got a high powered vessel. They'll probably get here fast. But then you have Risui who's like, no, don't worry. Like, it's not smart for them to immediately come in and try to take over after killing our, quote unquote, killing our science user. It's probably going to take them a little bit of time. Will they come tomorrow? Within a month? Really? Who knows? But if they do come quickly, it'll be a risky business. And that will be our advantage. So Ryusui basically comes to the conclusion that slow and steady wins the race. All they have to do is be patient and wait for the enemy to make a mistake. And then going from Ryusui, who is comforting the Kingdom of Science people, we cut over to Senku, where he has had a little plan in the back of his head that is about to come into fruition. Because Senku, he begins thinking like, I gotta buy some time. Well, might as well give them a certain present to Dr. Zeno, a special present, as you will say. And you have people questioning, like, what is this present? And then you have what is revealed the present to be, which is the Medusa. And how are they going to deliver this to Dr. Zeno? Are they just going to walk up towards the base, knock on the door, and say, here's this weapon that could petrify you in an instant. Here you go. No, they do it in style, because they have Ukyo take the Medusa and fire it into the door of Dr. Zeno's castle, where you just have this random scrub that sees it and takes it to him. But then you come to the realization that they literally just gave away their bargaining chip to the enemy. And Genryo realizes, it's like, what? You gave it away? But like I said, best girl Nikki, she's like, but it's out of juice. But still, so you have the people in the Kingdom of Science that are questioning why Senku would do this, but Ryusui gets it instantly. Because he comes to the conclusion that, as well as most likely what Senku is thinking, is that this piece of technology is something way beyond what Dr. Zeno would know. And that they would need someone to lie about it to help buy the Kingdom of Science more time. And then you have Minami, who is just thinking to herself, but the only way that would happen if, like, we had someone who's a really good liar. And not only just a really good liar, but, like, knows what the petrification device does and would have to be in the enemy territory right now. Like, who could possibly be doing this right now? Who could possibly be the greatest liar that is already in the enemy's territory? It's Gin. It's Gin. Like, when you read this, you obviously know that it's Gin. It's building up to that moment, and then immediately on the next page, it's revealed to be Gin. And Gin is even shocked by this revelation that, did Senku just send the petrification device here? And Gin is just so shocked by this, but he immediately gets his composure and begins devising a way to buy time for the Kingdom of Science. Because you have Dr. Zeno who's looking over and is like, oh, so you know what this device is? And Gin is like, oh, yes, totally. Yeah, this is the petrification device. Yeah, this is one of the many that we have. We found this like a while ago. He's lying. They only have the one petrification device, but he's like, there's so many more petrification devices. This is something from ancient times that was delivered to your doorstep. Luckily enough, it's a dud. But otherwise, if it wasn't, yeah, we will all be petrified immediately. So Gin immediately understands what Senku was thinking about sending the petrification device there. And so Gin begins to take advantage of this. Unfortunately, due to the fact that they caught him in a lie, you have the African-American male who is revealed to be a mechanic, and his name is Brody. He calls out Gin and is like, yeah, how do we know that this is true? We caught you in a lie before. You lied about your leader, so how can we trust you now? And then you have Gin, who immediately is like, oh, what? I didn't know he wasn't the leader. I mean, Taiju was always with Senku. I just assumed. Where you have Dr. Zeno coming to the realization, and Dr. Zeno's like, his credibility aside, like, what is true is that this is a high piece of technology. And with that, Stanley arrives. First of all, that is amazing how fast he was able to go from the Kingdom of Science back to America, which just shows that really at any time they could invade the Kingdom of Science. But Stanley, immediately when he comes back, is like, so, how does it work? They have a range? From how far? How long? Tell me all of this, you little peon. And Gin, being the ever-loving liar that he is, he's like, oh, they wouldn't tell me this information. They only tell those who are actually on the battle team. But you know, maybe you should be wary since, you know, you remember that petrification that happened thousands of years ago that literally wiped humanity off the face of the earth in one single strike. I mean, really at any moment, you could just be a statue. So Gin is trying to scare Stanley, but we all know that we don't know Stanley that well, but we know that he's not buying this BS. And really, Dr. Zeno, it doesn't really care either, because he is so confident in what they are building that even the threat of petrification does not faze him. So he like has this machine. It's like, well, it doesn't really matter. As we see a really buff lady that, I'm gonna be honest, would smash. Very attractive, very muscular, still smash. But yeah, we have this lady who's very strong that comes out of nowhere, crushes Gin's like head, like not like crushing it and twisting it, but like places her hand on Gin's head and then just starts singing. And apparently the singing is so bad that even Stanley is like, oh, this is so bad, let me cover my ears. But what she is doing is actually really smart, because she's singing and covering his ears so that they don't reveal the plan to Gin, just in case that he is, which we all know that he is, a traitor and a liar. And then from here, we get more of the confirmation of how they aren't afraid of the petrification machine, and how Dr. Brody, their genius mechanic, is coming up with a machine that they believe would give them victory as they're going down this kind of underground tunnel area, where you have Dr. Zeno who's asking Brody how long it would take for this invention to be fully functional, which Brody responds with, it'll be done in 2 weeks. So, you know, like I said, how Tsukasa was able to come up with the 2 weeks, I don't know, but it's very convenient that it's 2 weeks for the enemies and 2 weeks for the ally side. Wow, that's such a coincidence. It's like one side is probably going to be finished with their craft before the other. I wonder which side. So yes, we don't get the full reveal of what this machine is, but from the silhouette and from what Gin is thinking is like, oh man, they're building something. But luckily enough, I was able to buy the Kingdom of Science enough time. But still, it means that I gave the American side more time to build this machine, where we see this silhouetted figure. I don't know what it is. It kind of looks like a smokestack, but it really could be anything. Freaking, it could be a missile launcher for all I know. But we get a double page spread where the war is officially announced. The science versus science, where you have the Kingdom of Science on one side, and then the Kingdom of the America on the other, where you have them building up this machine with Chrome drawing out his plans, drawing out his roadmap to build a tunnel. And then from there, we actually cut back over to the Kingdom of Science, where we see Chrome, Ukyo, and Kohaku, and how Kohaku is wondering, like, well, how are we going to figure out, like, how far the tunnel is, or how long the tunnel needs to be for us to dig it to reach the base? And they have a plan for it. So they send Suika down with a rope to gain, like, a general distance, and then they plan to use geometry, or specifically triangulation, to basically get an estimate for how long the tunnel needs to be. And to give a general summary of like what this means, I can't really go into detail about it because we would be here a while. But basically what they plan on doing is using the angles and at least a one general measurement of the side to get a general understanding of how far the tunnel needs to be through an estimate. Because if you have at least two angles and a side, you can determine both sides and the other angle of a triangle. And from there, they'll be able to get a general understanding of how long the tunnel. And the main problem with this is that you have to be good at math to do this. And unfortunately, Chrome is not good at math. And people are questioning, well, Chrome, are you going to be able to do this? Because I know for a fact, like, you just suck at arithmetic. Like, you suck at it bad. So will you be able to? Oh, wow, he did it. So yeah, Chrome has shown that he's able to do math. He has mastered basic geometry, and apparently he also now knows how to write. And let's be clear, Senku has only been around for 3 years, and Chrome is relatively new to the science game, and yet he already knows how to write as well as do geometry, which is high school level math. Let us be clear, he started off with zero, zip, zero, nada. He sucked at math, and now he's able to do math effectively. I think this just shows that, yeah, Chrome, he got knowledge. He got a brain. He knows how to, at the very least, he's a quick learner. That over the 3 years, he was able to get geometry and math. He's a quick learner, and I think that is where his genius comes from. The fact that he can absorb everything and incorporate it into his knowledge quickly. And that can be seen when we see that he has finished the roadmap to how to build the tunnel. And I'm gonna be honest, it's crude. It's really crude. It's not detailed at all. It gives like general ideas on what needs to be done, but it's general enough for you to understand what is going on. And to give a brief summary of it, he has 3 main things that he needs to build for the tunnel to be complete. He needs to build a, as he defined it, a diggerific rotating loop knife, pillars, and a clean air machine with energy to build the tunnel. And what is interesting about this is that it makes sense if you think about it a little. And before we get into that, I want to go into the last page of the chapter where we have him finishing out the roadmap, and he comes up with something that he's like, oh, this is probably the best part of this roadmap, this thing right here. And what I call it is a diggerific rotating, impaling, land-eating loop knife. Ukyo, Tsukasa, and Hyuga, who is like, oh, it's a drill. With Chrome like, oh man, not again, as the chapter ends, showing that he invented a drill without knowing it was a drill. So all in all, this was a really good chapter. And before I get more into explaining what I liked and disliked about the chapter, I actually want to go deeply into the roadmap that Chrome built, because it's very simple, but it's very understandable. Basically what he is doing is that he needs to create a drill, which requires iron that is shaped into a screw. And something that I enjoyed about this is that a lot of what the lines are that go from one thing to another are in a spiral shape in representation of a screw or the drill. He needs the artisan of Kaseki to make the drill with iron in an engine. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. You need the iron to make the drill and then the engine to rotate the drill. Okay, that makes sense. Then he has a puff machine to help make a clean air machine that uses cloth. I'm like, okay, what is he going to use that for? Okay, because that's for the tunnel, so that they can have clean air going through the tunnel as they're digging, so it doesn't get dusty. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And then he has trees to use for pillars. I'm like, what are the pillars used for? To keep the tunnel stable so it doesn't collapse on them. And I'm like, okay, all right, that all makes sense. And even though it's very simple and it's probably going to require a lot more input later on, as a simple roadmap, yeah, this all makes sense. And I really do enjoy it. Still gets the point across, even though it's not as detailed as Senku, but it can still work. So that's something that I liked, as well as the fact that I knew for a fact that Senku was going to eventually use the Medusa as a bargaining chip, but it was used in a different way. At first, I thought it was going to be well, it was kind of used in the way that I thought. It was used in a way to buy time, and I think that is just something that we all could predict it, that Senku was going to use the Medusa to buy time. But what I didn't really realize is how effective that it's going to be, because you have Zeno, who's not really phased by this technology. He's amazed by it, but he believes that he's going to create a technology that will make it obsolete or not make it a threat. And I thought that was interesting as well. And something else that I really did enjoy is how this chapter shows how Ryusui is still one of the leaders of the Kingdom of Science, as well as Gin, and how even though he had really no basis into what Senku's plan was, he was able to adapt and find a way to, at the very least, what he did, we can say, helped buy time for the Kingdom of Science. So overall, really good chapter. Really did enjoy it. Can't wait for the next chapter to come out. Hopefully you enjoyed this review. If you liked it, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to my YouTube channel, do all of that cool jazz. And I'll catch you in the next video. Goodbye for now. Ooh.